The Third Hampshire District elected a Democrat almost 2 years ago, but that Democrat, State Representative Solomon Goldstein Rose, decided to unenroll from the party earlier this year. And then later, he announced he wouldn't seek a second term. Mindy Domb, who has a background in activism and human services, beat Eric Nakajima in the Democratic primary, and she joined me in the studio.
My impetus for getting into this race was when the incumbent unenrolled from the Democratic Party. As a constituent.
Solomon Goldstein Rose decided
Yes.
to be an independent.
Yes, and when that happened, I thought that was the wrong decision. And I wanted to be represented by a Democrat. I wanted to be represented by a progressive Democrat in the State House. And I began to think about all my other expectations for a state representative. Started making a little bit of a list and realized I wanted to do that and I could do that.
That you had a lot of those, characteristics.
Yes, I had not only the experience and the qualities, but I had the passion and the advocacy background, as well as the skills around coalition building.
Because the last time around, when Ellen Story decided to step down and Solomon Goldstein Rose decided to run, I understand that you were kind of courted at that time, but decided to decline, right?
Yes.
Why?
Well, at that point, that was 2 years ago, people asked me to consider running. And I'm the executive director at the Amherst Survival Center, and still am. But at that point, we had just approved a strategic plan. And for the executive director, that was sort of my baby. I wanted to see that to fruition, and so it wasn't the right time for me.
So for you, activism is part of your background, certainly not the only piece, but a part of it. And looking at the field here in Western Massachusetts, several of the candidates, Joe Comerford, Lindsay Sabadosa, yourself, all had that activism piece in their background. Do you think candidates are sending a message at this time, or why are so many people with that similar background being elected, do you think?
I think that's a great question. And I think it's the activism piece because it's the willing to do something, right, to stand up for what you believe. But in order to be a successful activist, you also have to be a statistician. You have to really understand strategy and also be a coalition builder. And so I think those skills are also coming to the fray, and that's how politics moves. That's how we move the needle in terms of legislation. So I also think Natalie Blais has that sort of strategic thinking sort of rooted in can-do kind of quality.
But you're not a stranger to politics. You've helped with campaigns, but you also helped launch Ted Weiss's campaign headquarters, or not campaign headquarters, but his office in New York.
Yes, I did.
So were there things that you learned from that connection, that direct connection to politics, that you saw that maybe, okay, you're going to tweak for your own office?
Well, in terms of my prospective office coming soon.
Assuming you don't have a candidate, a Republican who's facing you in the general election, so assuming that no one mounts a successful write-in campaign, you're likely going to head to the State House.
I think my background in opening up a district office for a member of Congress in New York City in the 80s, coupled with being a constituent of Ellen Story's for many years, has really sort of underscored for me the need to have strong constituent service in whatever shape my office takes place. So I'll be looking to make sure that that's an integral part from the day one, making sure that I'm available and accessible to constituents, not only to come to me with needs or requests for assistance, but for me to go to constituents, to be able to tap into their experience, their expertise, and leverage that and bring that into the policy making at Beacon Hill. And I'm really looking forward to that.
And so does that take the form of a physical office in the district for you, or just more sort of back and forth on social media?
I think it's social media, but it's also less of a physical office in the district and maybe more of a roving office in the district. So it may be office hours in various locations in the district. I've also been giving some thought to having advisory work groups where I can pull together constituents to advise me, as well as for me to share information so that we can be real partners in this.
Let's look at some of the platforms that you campaigned on. One of them was education, and you really advocated for education being funded pre-K through college. Lots of people like the idea, but practically, how do you pay for that?
Well, I know this is the real question, right? How do we pay for this? And there's a whole discussion now in national politics about the whole question of how do we pay for it and what do we ask in terms of how do we pay for it. We ask about education, but do we leverage the same kind of questions with other issues? I think in Massachusetts, we have a lot of expenses. Education, public education is one of those expenses that we want funded. We've made promises to children and their families in the state about what we will pay for, and we haven't lived up to those promises, so we have to do better. Transportation, infrastructure, there's a long list. we need a better way to generate revenue in the state. I'm an advocate of a progressive tax. And so I'll be working hard to see how we can make that happen in the legislature, whether that's by law, by referenda, moving that forward, because we need to raise more revenue or we're going to continue to fail our families.
Public health is another area that you have a very strong background in, and HIV in particular, whether it was in New York or even in the Berkshires here in Western Massachusetts, opening up offices. But also HIV and AIDS is something we don't really hear as much about in the larger scope. Do you think that's because we're focusing on other more critical things, or is HIV just as critical, but it's sort of fallen out of fashion?
Well, it's interesting because I think as public health priorities go, there's always seems to be room for only one public health priority at a time in terms of how we really apply ourselves to focus. But unfortunately, I think we're going to be hearing about HIV and AIDS and a resurgence of it in the coming months and years because it's linked to the opioid epidemic.
Because people are sharing needles.
They're sharing needles, and it's the fentanyl that people are using has a shorter lifespan than heroin, and so they're sharing more needles. And when they share more needles, that potentially puts people at risk. So public health, lots of things are connected to public health. And so when we think about HIV/AIDS, we think about a retrovirus, but it's also behaviors. It's also social determinants of health. Are people getting food? Are people being housed? Do they have transportation to get to their medical offices? All of these factors also sort of contribute not just to HIV/AIDS, but our overall public health. I'm really looking forward to sort of addressing that from the state level.
Opioids, you mentioned them just a moment ago. Medication-assisted treatment was something that was folded into the most recent legislation that was passed this summer.
Yep.
Is that something that you would be supportive of? Several of the pilots are actually here in Western Massachusetts.
Absolutely. I not only am supportive of medication-assisted treatment being available in jails and prisons, but I'm very supportive of more resources to make that more disseminated throughout the Commonwealth, to put it into more medical offices, to make sure that they're in more emergency rooms, and then to also make sure that we are funding the programs that are necessary for the handoff, so that somebody gets that medication-assisted therapy, whether it's Suboxone or Methadone, but they're also able then to access a treatment program that allows them to get the other kinds of support they need to be in recovery.
Because that's the piece that people who are concerned about this sort of, they call it maybe limping along or helping people, just prolonging the addiction, is that treatment piece.
It is the treatment piece,
if wellness is the goal, they see medication-assisted treatment as getting in the way of that.
I don't see it that way, but I understand that there's sort of a stigma attached to it because people feel like we're still giving somebody an opioid or an opioid-related product. I see it as we're also helping that person not use. We're helping that person be able to function in a way that they want to function. We're helping them, if they want to get a job, be able to get a job. And we're also helping them stay healthy because there are a lot of health impacts that associate with heroin use and other kinds of substances. I think it's about meeting people where they're at. And so we have to make sure that we have the full spectrum of programs available for people who may be struggling with addiction so that as a society and as a community, we can meet them where they're at and support where they're at to help them get to the next place in recovery and the next part of health that they've determined.